Wagwan Man's here to commentate a bare exciting race in it. It's season 9 of League of Europe still. We're here for some D2 ting with fam ready to race their whips at Silverstone ends. Let's see who has the W Riz here tonight and who's are the Dutty Wastemen of D2. I'm Killer Blue 295, reigning D2 champion. I'm with my base man J. Cole, fresh off a clapping in D1 in it. I know we're both hella gassed to chat bear wows over the mic tonight. Real talk. Shout to my man J. Cole. How you doing, bruv?
I still can't believe you went through with that, but we'll move anyway. I can't believe you actually did that, but okay, fair enough. We'll go with that. Yeah, hello everybody. We're back in Division 2. What a way to start a season, eh? Yeah, welcome back everyone. We are here for round number 1 of Division 2. I'm also being told that there is going to be rain straight up in the race. Still, it's going to be fun. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to get back in for this. Back ready for the League of Europe again.
Yes, it's been a long time, but me and you shared the commentary box for an entire season. My first full season of commentary, wasn't it? It was back in season 5, I want to say. Because I did season 6 with commentated, season 7 with QBR Packer, season 8 with James Head. And now season 9 back with yourself, so we've gone full circle back to where I started. Yeah, so Larkin saying dry to wet race. Ivo says hoy. FRL Charlie says hoy. Hoy to yourselves. We've got IRT Res the first man out on track, and let's have a little look through the grid. We've got a couple of new drivers, a couple of old hands as well. We've got Lix, Coxey, Felipe, who've been in D2 before. Resify was briefly in D1 at the start of last season. ET8 Chris, I believe that's TPI Chris, Division 3 champion. Ivo, I think, is a new driver. Taupe, formerly of MLE, now of IRT, then Larkin. Swee Ross is new. Evans Joshua, hoping to pick up where he left off with a win at Abu Dhabi last season, that frantic season finale. And then IRT Rex. Brent, they've both been in D2 before. Stein, I think, is new. FRL Charlie's up from D3. Luke, back in the same car as last season, the Alpha Tauri, and then Marcio, also of D2. Alex the G. Is Alex the G making his League of Europe racing debut here? I know he's commentated for us. And then we've got T Brumley, who's D3 champion, and That Scream, who's also D3 fame. I am right, aren't I? Is Alex G new to the league in terms of driving?
Yeah, he's done comms, I think, in dual for a couple of times, but yeah, this is definitely his racing debut for sure for League of Europe. Yeah, you're right. ETA Chris is the CPI Chris from last season. Ivo was actually in Division 3 last season as well as Swee. Both of those guys were in D3. Yeah, T Brown, obviously Division 4 champion from last season as well, coming into Division 2. He's kind of done a bit of a Brendan in terms of the jump from Division 4 to Division 2. Probably see him in Division 1 next season if it's going to be that way, if it carries on going the way it is with Brent, or that it was with Brendan as well. But yeah, a lot of returning faces, a couple new guys. I'm excited to see how it goes, Jake.
As am I. I'm slowly collecting League of Europe divisions when it comes to commentary. I've done Division 1 now, Division 3 twice, Division 5, now Division 2. I'm missing Division 4 from the set. I've also been at LOE Steward, I'm the LOE founder, I do LOE graphics. I've really got no life there, is the message that's sent in. IRT Resify is first on lap 103.4 through the North sector. Not outstanding, but a good lap nonetheless. And he's coming towards Stone now. Down 2 gears. You want to flick it in, run the car as wide as you can. Goes into 5th actually. I think took a bit too much of the inside curb there. It can just spit the car out a little bit. And then you want to open up the Vale chicane. Don't be too greedy with the curbs or with the throttle on the exit, because that corner will spin you around. And across the line, first lap of the season, it's a 27.2, and I'm at no pains to say that lap time will be beaten probably quite quickly. No one's gone invalid behind him. Anyone else on a particularly quick lap? We've got ERT Larkin, Constructors Champion, of course, now coming through the middle sector. He's on a 103.6, so he's currently down on Reservoirs. Coxey pops it at 27.3. Let's watch the end of Larkin's lap, shall we?
Yeah, Larkin just making his way up towards the Stowe, or going past Stowe corner now and up towards the final chicane, through the Vale chicane and Club corner. See if he's able to keep that car going in a straight line. It's very difficult on the traction, but around the final corner goes Larkin, 27.4. not too bad of a banker lap. Probably expecting a few of these guys to get into the 26s, like the high 26s I'd be expecting for pole position. Our Division 3 champion from last season, ET8 Chris, just coming across the line. It's only a 27.5 for the Alpine. Early impressions, Jake. Reservoir obviously on top and Coxey's in second. Any sort of early impressions that you think could be from the championship, even from past of last year? Because, I mean, you was driving against a lot of these guys last season.
Championship from one lap, you're laughing. I'm not going to make any kind of call. But I will say, the lobby is slower than I was expecting. We've had 10 laps on the board so far, make that 11 now. We've not had anyone go faster than the D3 pole time, which was a 27.1. I think we've just got Ivo and Alex to finish their laps now. Everyone else on an in-lap, apart from Lix, who's on an out-lap, and then Nolan, Brent, Charlie, Marcio, all in the pits. Let's see what Ivo can do through the middle sector in the McLaren, deputising for Miami 4S, who isn't here today. It's a 103, a 104.1 through the middle sector, so not a great split time for Ivo. That's not going to be a particularly competitive lap time. 27.5 for Alex the G in the first sector. That's also some way off where I'd expect the pace to be. You want to be aiming for a 0.3 really in sector 1, or at best a very, very low, or at worst a very, very low 4. Down one gear through Beckett's and then down another for Chapel. That looked nice and tidy through there. 103.8. We'll try and nab some slipstream from the Alfa Romeo just ahead of him. I think that is Lix. And then down 2 gears for Stowe. Interesting to see the mix of drivers, some using 5th through there, some using 6th. I prefer 6th. I don't quite get the turn in with 5th gear through there, but then I barely done any practice because I didn't end up racing. Anyway, what's Alex the G going to manage across the line? It's only going to be a 27 at best. It's a 27.6. Goes to P8, 400s behind Luke 05 HD. We had a number of title contenders last season in D2 at various points. Myself, Rickarich, Darry, Kriko. Luke is the only one of those, I mean, even Nathan, arguably at one point. Luke is the only one of those to be left behind in D2. Do you think this can be his season to go for that title?
Definitely a chance. He has got, Larkin was, I think, closing up on him towards the end of the season. I think he somehow managed to find his left analog stick at some point. So, yeah, Larkin's definitely going to be one we'll need to keep our eye out for. Luke, I kind of have to say is pretty much a favourite for this season as well, especially considering, like you say, the rest of the guys that were in contention for the championship all got promoted into Division 1 for this season as well. So, yeah, if logic makes it that, it's kind of got to be Luke is going to be the favourite for the championship. But I mean, Reservoir has come out with a very good lap to start off with, and no one's been able to sort of challenge that, to be honest with you. I'm expecting a couple other guys that didn't really have a particularly good season, but has got the pace. You know, the likes of, I can't believe I have to say it, but the likes of Nolan, the likes of Evans, you know, both of those guys. I mean, Evans was a race winner, I know, towards the end of the season. Granted, it was a bit of a interesting race, but he definitely has got the pace to win a race, and so does Nolan. So I'd be expecting maybe a couple of these guys to try and challenge towards the front for sure towards the end, even in the start of this, and they just got to give a good impression of that. And Nolan has gone purple in sector 2 as well.
Yeah, he's on a very good lap, 103.4 through the middle sector. I think he's got it well within him, Nolan, to go for a title push. If he just needs to keep his nose out of trouble, as he did last season. No licence points, as he will happily tell you over and over. But I think he cleaned his reputation up from a few seasons ago, and he goes into P2 at 27.302. His first sector looked a little bit sloppy, just a little bit tired, car not wanting to quite turn in as much as he would have liked in turn 3 and turn 4 where we are now, but it was a good lap nonetheless. Coxey's invalid, I think he's only on an out lap, so we'll see what he can do. Was in D1 briefly last season, then went back down to D2. I think there's plenty of drivers here. If they hit the ground running and it gives them some motivation, they can go on for it. Although Coxey goes pirouetting 270 degrees through turn 1 there. Who else have we got on a lap? I think Larkin is just starting. Tope is on a lap, a 103.5. No, he's not. He's on an out lap because the game doesn't tell you when people are on out laps correctly. Evans is on an out lap. Rex is just starting. Charlie is on a lap, but is on mediums and does a 28.4. I don't I can't quite see who's going to be next across the line. It's going to be, I think it might, Larkin's quite far ahead, so I think it might even be as far back as Larkin. Who's going to be the next one to cross the line, because the game's lying to me. Or no, it's going to be Resify. It's going to be Resify, our pole sitter. So just Vale chicane to navigate, and I don't think this is going to put him... Oh no, that was very poor from Resify. And that last sector cost him. It's 27.5. He lost a handful of time there, couldn't quite get the car to stick, Jack. And the gauntlet, as it were, for all the other drivers remains as it was.
Yeah, it certainly does. So it said for me that Resify was invalidated going across the line, so I thought he wasn't actually putting in a proper time, but it just must have been glitched on my side. You're saying obviously Tope also currently out on a lap. Coxie, I think, is just gearing up to start another lap. Hopefully not trying to pirouette it around turn 1 this time. Yeah, Tope in fact 300ths of a second down on his time, so I'm going to stick on board with him towards the end of the lap. In fact, Larkin coming across the line, 27.396. We'll see if Tope was either just change positions with each other there, and Tope, I think it said, was about a 10th up on his time. So let's see what the German's able to do with only 3 more corners to go. The final chicane now coming around for the IRT driver. Let's see if he is able to improve upon that time. It's looking very likely, and onto the top of the grid, IRT Tope at 27.196 on pole position. Stain instantly takes that off of him and dethrones him from that. 27.189, very close at the top there, Jake.
I think Tope is another one of those names where it's a motivation thing. If he realises he wants to win the championship, he can go and win the championship. I think last season, both Red Bulls, himself and IRT Dari, were very slow to start, and then they found some motivation sort of mid-season time and ended up improving significantly, and they went on a bit of a podium charge second half of the season. T-Bram, I think, has just improved to P9, and Luke has also improved to P5 with a 27.302, identical lap time to his teammate in P4, Ariel Filippo. So the two Ariel drivers are pretty much exactly inseparable across the second and third rows of the grid. Who's next towards the line? I can't see anyone on a lap. Actually, no, I can. Alex the G, a 10th up in sector 1, and a very good middle sector time. He's half a second up. That's going to put him right on the pace of Stain and Tope for the front row of the grid. Can Alex throw himself into pole position contention here? He's been anonymous so far in the session, but with just over 5 minutes to go, he's on a very good lap and half a second up from what he's managed so far. He could even put him towards a 27.0 if he's got time in hand in this last sector as well. That looked very tidy through Club and Vale before it, and he does go fast. It's a 27.0 for Alex the G. So pole position changing all the time in this session, and it's very hard to pick a favourite out of any of this. If you're going to ask me to pick a title favourite, I'm going to ask you, because it seems very tricky right now.
Nah, you're spot on. Obviously, we may have to see what it's like in the race, but yeah, I get where you are coming from. Nolan's just coming on to start a lap for what will probably be the final time for this first qualifying session of the season. But I mean, if I had to go with anybody for the specific title, I think it's still going to have to be Luke for the time being. Again, it could potentially change within the next couple of races. I'm sure by the time we get to maybe the 4th or 5th race of the calendar, we'll end up seeing a lot of different gaps sort of forming already within Division 2. But yeah, I'll just find on board with Nolan. He's a lot out of sync in comparison to everybody else, as a lot of other guys are in the pits. Nolan just got a nice, clean track out in front of him. No one to really interrupt him. The next two guys that are in front of him are, I believe, Alex the G and FRL Charlie. And I think Charlie is actually out on a lap as well himself. But I'm just sticking on board with Nolan currently, just to see what he's able to do for the Maggots and Beckett. And of course the exit of Chapel manages to keep it within the white line, so no invalidations from there. Is it going to be a purple sector 2? It is. It's 103.3, and that is almost identical to what Alex was doing. So it's just this final sector, and we'll see if Nolan's able to do that one. Charlie did end up spinning coming out of slow, so he's going to make his way into the pits. Still 28.4 for the Aston Martin, who did that time on a sector medium. So Nolan, the only one out on track now to come across the line to finish probably his final lap of the evening, and it's going to be a 27.105 up into second position. Still no one into the 26s, Jake.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just a little bit of early season nerves and early season rustiness, perhaps, from not having played the game. I think Nolan could have gone a touch quicker. It looked to me like he went a little bit deep into the first part of Vale, which would have compromised him then through Club, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. It looked like he just overshot a little bit on the brakes. Evans Joshua's going to be the first person to start his last lap. I believe that he is. He's ahead of Marcio and ahead of Lick. So we've got a bit of a lull in the session. Here's 3 minutes to go. There'll be a stampede out of the pits pretty soon because we've only got 4 people on out laps. But here they come, dredging their way out of the pits. I think Coxey is going to be the next one. I'd say you got to say at least the top 9 probably. You could all reasonably take a punt on them being in shot for pole. I know Nolan can't improve now, but Alex, Stain, Taupe, Resify, Luke, Coxey, Larkin, Evans, all those names I would say very much in a position to just pull a lap out of the hat and threaten for pole. Those behind them, T-Bram and Chris, are Season 8 D3 drivers, so I'd say their potential is a little more of an unknown in this grid, but certainly the top 9, I think there's anyone in there who can take it. Evans is really wiggling his way down the hanger straight there.
Yeah, no, for sure. In fact, I'd actually argue and go to say maybe even top 12 could potentially have a shot. They're all within 500 or 5/10 of a second of each other. But we'll see how the final race winner of Season 8 in Division 2 is going to do for his final qualifying lap. A lot of people have made their way out of the pit, so hopefully they don't impede him too much, if at all. Coming onto his final lap very nicely, coming through the looping section for Evans, maybe a little bit too wide coming out of there and a little bit too late on the traction, taking that very deep as well, coming on towards the first DRS straight. DRS now wide open, of course, going down in towards Brooklands, and it's only 500ths of a second down on his time for Evans. And the thing is, it's not even taking into consideration the rest of the guys out in front who are currently warming up to do their final lap. You can all see him down the hanger straight and even coming through Maggots and Beckett's, where Evans is now making his way up to Nolan into the pits to retire from the session. As he's done his final lap, he's now just going to wait and see what everybody is left to do as Evans goes wide, and that is lap invalidated for Evans. If he can try and build up that energy, he may just about be able to go for one more run, but he needs to get to that line quick and completely cutting across Chapel. I don't know if that's because he's trying to get there, but yeah, completely cut across Chapel. I wonder if he's going to try and cut a little bit into the queue. Let's have a look and see. He has, and he's in fact gone around, so that's probably a little bit of karma for him. Cutting across Chapel, and that's Evans now around. I'm pretty sure that's his qualifying all down the drain for him.
I mean, his tyres will be dead, but he has got the time to go again. We've got 30 seconds left in the session started. Stain in P3 right now is improving. He's up by 2/10, over 2/10 through the middle section, 103.2. He just needs to not bottle the last part of that, but Vale invites you, as does Club, to let go on the traction, spin the car around if you're not too careful. You have to be oh so gentle with the throttle through here, but it looks like Stain's being more than gracious enough. 5th gear through there and across the line at 27.024, takes provisional pole. Alex is 400 down through the first sector. I haven't seen what Taupe's done. Resify's coming through the middle sector of the lap now. He's on a 103.3, up by almost 10th. Not on pole pace right now, but certainly within a chance of P3. And yeah, Coxey goes 4th place with a 27.115. He's the first to finish session. Taupe's now invalid, so he's not going to improve. Resify's up by 800s, but what can he do through the last chicane? And he's just got the last one to go. That looks very nice and tidy. Carried a lot of speed, 27.139, just missed out on the first 2 rows. Luke's up by 2/10 of a second. He can even get pole here, could Luke. He's on 103.2 through the middle. Chris improves to a 27.3 behind him. Larkin's lurking in P9. Has he got anything in the tank? Well, it's going to be Luke who's the next across the line. It's Alex for G, retake the pole position by 15,000 of a second. What about Luke? Only good enough for P6. I don't think he had a great last sector. Larkin's up by a 10th. That could put him, well, it might right now only put him into P8. He's somewhere drift of Taupe. Such is the competitiveness of that top 7 right now. What can Larkin do? He goes P5. Look at that, the 27.1 gang. Nolan, Coxey, Larkin, Resify, Luke, Taupe, all Jack on 27.1s.
So close, and even if just the top 8 all split by just under 2/10 of a second. Very close to say the least. But yeah, wow, what a qualifying that is. I think Marcio was going to be the last one, but I think he's just had a spin out of Stowe as well. So I think he's still going to improve on his lap time. It looks like he's going to come across the line, but yeah, he's going to be starting plumb last at the back of the grid. Licks also on his final qualifying run ended up having a nice little spin as well, going through Stowe from what I call as well. And that's all you have for qualifying. Our reserve driver Alex the G in the Red Bull, taking pole position and staying the new driver as well in P2. A very good debut team for both Alex and Stain, and Nolan in third with his good mate Coxie next to him. That could definitely cause some sort of chaos.
I think we're in a position for an absolute cracker, especially if it's dry to wet. I mean, we saw a bonkers dry to wet race in D3 where Sagat won by pitting from on a dry track, fully dry track onto Inters, then making the last end of the race, won him overall. But this has been such a close grid. As you say, the top 8 covered by less, well under 2 tenths per second. So Alex G's on pole, Stain second, Felipe third, Coxie fourth, Larkin and Redfire on row 3, Luke and Tope on row 4, then Chris Evans Joshua, who won the last D2 race at Abu Dhabi, down in P10, and Sweet Ross is 11th, T Brum is 12th, The Scream is 13th, Rex 14th, Brent 15th, Ivo 16th, then Lix, Charlie and Marcio, who never really got a quick lap on the board, and Charlie, who didn't even put the softs on in that session, completing the grid. But 15 drivers covered by 6 tenths of a second. It is excruciatingly, remarkably close to the point that you're going to say, or you could reasonably say that anyone in that, if we get a bit of weather or a safety car, could be on the podium.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be a bit, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to play out. I mean, a lot of the time, Silverstone's known for DRS trains. It's a lot of people, they like driving it, but they don't like racing it, if that makes sense. So qualifying obviously was very, very close, to say the least, and I feel like we're going to see a very similar situation in the race as well. But like you say, it goes from dry to wet. So when it comes to the wet, then we're going to start to see a shift in a lot of different people's paces, whether they're very good in the wet and they're not exactly that good in the dry. Maybe a few guys towards the back end of the field, a couple of people that I know within the middle of the field, likes of Luke and Larkin, I know are pretty handy in the wet conditions. Nolan as well, can be pretty handy in the wets as well. So yeah, those are the guys that I'm particularly looking at to try and make a bit more of a difference going into this race, especially when it comes to wets. But I mean, you can't fault Alex and you can't fault Stain. You know, that race to turn 1 is going to be very, very interesting to say the least, Jake.
It is, and I'm intrigued to see. Charlie says rain will be around lap 18, he says, but I mean, the weather forecast is imprecise. It's set to approximate, so we don't know 100% with that, but you'd expect, therefore, pretty much everyone to go for hards. Let's have a look how right I am. Most have gone for hards. Nolan is the only exception in the top 9. Then Evans and Ross have done the same. Brent, Ivo and Lix also for mediums. But everyone else is on hards, and I think most people are just looking at this thinking, I'll go all the way to the rain. Is Coxie a full-time driver? He is, isn't he? Or is he not?
I don't believe so. I'll have a double check. I don't believe so. Alex has spun on the formation lap, so hopefully not a sign of things to come for him, especially being, of course, the reserve driver for this as well.
Just a temperature strategy, I'm sure, just to get some heat into those rears.
Yes, I can say as well, Coxie isn't a full-time driver.
So Red Bull not having either of their full-time drivers, that's not a good start for them into the Constructors' Championship, is it? Who are Red Bull's full-time drivers?
I will have to have a double check and see, but yeah, I mean, it's as I said, it's quite a bit of quite strange that both of the Red Bulls aren't actually here for this evening. As just trying to get up for Division 2s, it's both QVR Ben JS and RJW, so the two Brummies not exactly here tonight for the both of them. Hope to see the both of them back next week for the sprint and the race around China, especially because there's going to be quite a lot of points on offer for them.
So Red Bull are going to get a big fat... They could get a 1-2 in this race, quite reasonably, looking at the order on the left-hand side of the screen, but they're going to leave with a big fat 0 in the Constructors' Championship. And Alex the G is right in the middle of the pack now, so he's going to start with quite nice, fresh, hotter tyres than those around him. I wonder if that was a deliberate ploy. He's just being crafty there. Noel's going to be the first to take his grid spot, as he has been accustomed to do. He's like going fourth on the formation up, hasn't he, and leading the pack away. Unfortunately for him, he didn't really benefit from it in terms of stream time. So, what's your prediction, Jack? Make us a quick one.
I think we're going to see Alex probably take the win. Nolan, I think if he had gone on hards, I would say he's definitely got a good chance. But I think Alex to win this.
I won't disagree with you. And Alex has really pointed his car towards Stain. You can see on the grid there, he is pulling every trick in the book to get a good launch off the line. So it's going to be 2 rookies who are going to lead us away for Division 2 this season. We've got 5 lights at Silverstone, and we are underway. Who got the better start? Jump through. A drive-through penalty for a jump start from Scream. And look at Nolan on those medium tyres flying into P2. Stain had a really shambolic start. Larkin's up into P4. Coxey's lost a place. We've got a side-by-side between one of the Williamses. That is. Can we get a good camera angle, please? Evans has jumped up into 6th place on his medium tyres, and he's now having a look at the back of Coxey and Larkin, who are duelling their way through Aintree. Coxey's going to have to concede that one, and now Larkin is going to have a look at the back of Stain towards Brooklands. They all come down the straight. I don't think we've seen any front wings flying in the meantime. There's a Mercedes of T-Brum having a look, pulling out for a move there towards Brooklands, but nothing doing to him. We've got a yellow flag. There's Luke is round, and we've got, look at this, side by side through Luffield, Taupe, and the 2 Mercedes, and now Coxey's been spun round as well in that, and it started so well, and then I cursed it, Jack, because we've had some spins all around and down the backfield. It's Coxey in last place, and look at this, we're nearly 3 wide into Cops there, and Scream had to take some drastic avoiding action not to plough into the back of Ross, who himself is following Ivo through. Marcio's got damage or has made a mistake, very slow out of Cops' corner, but Alex the G leads from Ariel Felipe, but in the back of the field, God knows what's happening. Everyone, though, I think, has escaped damage, as we've got Larkin and Resify going at it into Stowe, and Resify might just make this stick around the outside. Switches to the inside for Vale, and it's who's going to be bravest on the brakes. Larkin's going to have the inside line for Club. Oh, and a little moment on traction there, and Resify has to concede the place, and Evans is going to nip through in the process as well. Evans had a cracking first lap as Resify loses it out of the last corner. And what are you seeing, Jack? What are you thinking of that first lap at Silverstone?
It's definitely very scrappy. Coxey's also gone around out of the final corner as well. That Scream into the pits, so he must have picked up some sort of damage, especially considering he's going into the pits on the set of the hard compounded tyre. But it started off very well, and then it just turned to complete mush in towards like the middle of the lap. But yeah, everyone in the top 4 having a very good start. Larkin dropping off completely from the top 3 and is now getting pressured by Evans on those medium compounded tyre. Obviously the guys on the mediums, they've made some very good progress, the likes of Nolan, Evans, Brent, all making some very good progress. There's Chris and Charlie going side by side through Luffield. Chris down the inside in towards that. Charlie trying to hold it around the outside, and still both very close to each other. Charlie maybe even trying to go around the outside of Cops. Chris will have the inside for that, so I don't think any sort of move is going to be done. But the switch back from Charlie going in towards Magnus and Beckett's. They're both still side by side. Evans getting past Larkin as well. Still both side by side for P9 and P10. I think Chris has managed to hold on to that in the end. Very good racing between the pair of them, but didn't manage to catch it. Evans getting past Larkin for P4, which is quite crucial. It might even be able to get, or if Larkin can stay within the DRS of Evans, then he can get dragged along by the Aston Martin, try and catch up to the top 3. But Alex has had an absolute dream start. Nolan has not been able to try and get past him as of yet, but he had a very good start.
He did, and he's keeping nicely up at the front. Sorry, I was just watching a battle between Ross and Rex nearly losing out there to Ivo, who's just keeping a watching brief on these guys, waiting for something to happen just ahead of him. As you said, the medium drivers are getting on fairly well in the early phase of this race. And Ivo, mighty fancy a Senio that was on a Rexon towards turn 3. Got a yellow flag. That's Coxey spun again at the last corner. Started P4, not gone very well for him. Lost that place to Larkin very early off the line, and then a couple of spins later, and he's down in P18. Have we got anything? Larkin doesn't look like he's really got the pace to compete with Evans on those medium tyres, does he, right now? Languishing in 5th place, although he's not really under threat from T-Bram or Taupe right now. Nolan's getting closer, has to be said, to Alex the G. Let's bring up telemetry for the first time in this race. 76% for Nolan, 60% for Alex, and Alex goes a little bit wide through Cops' corner. Nolan's getting massively now through Magnets and Beckett's. DRS in effect for the first time on this lap. Nolan's got a chance towards the exit of Chapel down the hanging straight if he gets a good exit. And is he going to put that ERS on? No, he's not. He's going to bide his time, perhaps wait for the next lap. But that was a very sluggish moment through Cops, for Alex. And he does look like he's not impervious, does he, Jack? He looks like he has certainly got a mistake in him.
Yeah, no, he certainly does, and Nolan needs to try and capitalise on that, especially on these medium compound tyres. Like you say, he's buying his time for now, which is good to see. Not very Nolan-esque, I've got to say, but yeah, definitely buying his time. Setting the fastest lap of the race, which is instantly beaten by Stain, which is instantly beaten by Evans. Evans is being allowed to just sort of run away from Larkin as much as possible, despite DRS being enabled and Larkin just about being able to stay within DRS of Evans. He's sort of just dragging him along, kind of trying to catch up to the top three. Is Alex going a bit wide, going through turn number 3, and through the looping section as well. As Nolan has a massive belt wobble, and so does Stain coming out of the loop. All 3 of the top 3 really had a struggle coming out of the looping section, but it looks as if Alex is still being able to hold on for the time being. Nolan closing up massively down the straight, coming up in towards Brooklands and now through Luffield through the top 2. Stain losing out DRS now, and Evans only 1.5 seconds now behind Stain. Stain really needs to try and catch back up with these top 2, otherwise he's going to be really under pressure from Evans out behind. Again, a bit of deja vu from last season as well here, Jake, because it looks as already if the top 5, other than the top 2, are all a second apart from each other, which was a very common factor from what we saw last season. Yeah, I know you was driving in it, but I'm sure you managed to spot that a few times last season as well.
I spent most of the Silverstone race last season in the back of the pack, as Larkin has gone. He's dropped it out of Chapel, or yeah, I think out of Chapel, has to be said. He's got DRS though, but he's going to lose all the way down to 13th place. So he's lost 8 positions there, thanks to the train. But although thanks to the train, he's not out of contention. He's still very much in a DRS train all the way up to Taupe. So he's not in too bad a position right now, but he needs to keep his head and try and reclaim a couple of those positions sharpish. He is on the hard tyre though, so the stint will come towards him a little bit. Stain, I was just going to say, on that last lap, looked a little bit rattled. They all made that mistake coming out of the loop, farm or village or whatever it is. But then I saw him lock up into Luffield, which isn't a corner you really should be locking up into. He lost a couple of tenths. He's slipped well out of DRS range of Nolan now. He just seems a little bit uncomfortable at this point in the race. He's now 1.7 behind Nolan, although the DRS will have played a factor in that. But yeah, last season I had a drive-through penalty off the start, you may remember, and then was in the back for the vast majority of that race until a late safety car played into my hands. But yeah, it seems to be that the top 6 or so are spread out, and then everyone behind them is very, very clustered. Taupe at the front of that train, and it extends all the way down to Luke in P14. No one more than 7 tenths back in that pack. So if you do make a mistake like Larkin did, you're not completely out of it, are you?
No, not necessarily, but then it's going to be very difficult to try and overtake as well. So realistically, you're gambling sort of for points if you're going to be doing that kind of thing, especially if you do spin. Maybe just having to try and go for an undercut. But then again, obviously, a lot of these guys are going to be playing it to the rain, as Brent getting past Taupe, going down in towards Stowe. The Mercedes now up into P6, up ahead of the IRT driver, and yeah, Brent now up in 6th position. On the medium compound tyre, Alex setting the fastest lap of the race, despite Nolan literally still following within his DRS. Evans has caught back up as well to the back of Staines. So it's now turned from, well, it's basically going 2 by 2 of battles with each other, first and second battling each other, and third and fourth. And ironically, both with the hard and both with the medium driver as well. So yeah, I think this is there's definitely going to be some battles escalating with these guys in the top 4. Obviously, as I said, going 2 by 2. And Nolan, I think, just trying to play a little bit of mind games on Alex at the moment. You can see that Nolan basically got double the amount of ERS in comparison to Alex in P1. So Nolan really just trying to build up as much as he possibly can, try and get the better exit as best as he possibly can. Unfortunately, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Nolan's still using auto gears is going to hinder him. I think that's going to be the biggest weakness for him in this race, as Luke and Ivo both side by side. Luke now up into the points.
Yeah, Luke's had a very good lap. He passed Larkin first, now he's passed Ivo as well on this lap, although his penance for that is that he's now out of Rex's DRS. They're broken off from the train. Luke's going to have to work overtime and use some ERS to drag himself and the McLarens back into action. As Ivo looked like he had a little twitchy moment there, just from the camera angle perhaps. But yeah, Alex had a moment at turn 3. Well, not really a moment, he just went quite deep and he had to hook the car back, and it ended up costing him. Is that Stain is under threat from Evans Joshua here. Evans Joshua, who started P9, of course, he's getting the squeeze put on him by the Haas, but has to concede the place there. But he's certainly made the most out of those medium tyres. He's gained, what, 10 places, not 10 places, 6 places or so, and he's on a shout here for a potential podium finish. If he can make those mediums last to the rain, Brent Evans and Felipe have all played an absolute blinder here.
Yeah, especially as you say, if they can get those mediums to whenever it does decide to rain, as first penalty for Division 2 for the season goes to FRL Charlie in Aston Martin in P9, and I don't feel like that will be the last penalty we will see for this evening for these guys in Division 2. And saying that, Charlie also could potentially be going for a move on Chris down in towards Brooklands. Doesn't look as if he's going to be able to go for any sort of move. And Chris going a bit wide going through Brooklands, now coming through Luffield. I think Charlie's just having to slot back in. Oh, a little bit of lag going from Chris there, and I don't know if that was on Charlie's side, I don't know if that was on Chris's side. It looked as if it was on Chris's side, but yeah, hopefully Chris can get those connection issues sorted out, because that probably gave Charlie a mini heart attack, to say the least. But yeah, everybody else just still sort of following suit, sorry. And at the moment, Chris could be looking for a move on Tope when they come down the hanger straight.
He certainly could do. I'll tell you who else was looking for his Larkin. He's passed Ivo, so he lost a place to Luke, but he's regained one on Ivo, so he's back where he was after a spin in P13. And is Chris going to go for this D3 champion, of course, behind IRT Tope? I think I'm right in saying Tope won a race last season. He certainly had a couple of podiums. Has a snap of oversteer there for Chris in the middle of Stowe, which is not exactly what you need. And ahead of them, T-Brum going a little bit deep into Vale, but we are in very much, well, I'd say, a holding pattern right now, aren't we? It's the Brent train rather than the Tope train now, but it is very much as it has been for the last 3 or 4 laps.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think we're going to start to see the crossover point as well for the mediums to the hards very soon. Obviously, we've done 8 laps out of 26 so far in this race, and our mediums, I think, are now going to start to degrade a bit more, and it's going to get to the point, as I say, that the hards are going to be the tyre to be on in comparison to those mediums, probably even, if not this lap, definitely on the next lap, as Charlie eyeing up a move on Chris down in towards Brooklands. Chris again going very wide, coming out of Brooklands now through Luffield, still both side by side. Charlie's going to have to probably just slot back in behind the Division 3 champion of last season and maintains that P9 position. But very good battling between those two, especially considering that they're in a DRS train, stuck really behind Tope and behind Brent, but up towards the front end of the field. Evans is now very, very close to the back for Stain, and I get the feeling we're going to see a move go for the Aston Martin driver down in towards Stowe. Let's have a look. DRS is now wide open for Evans, and ERS is being used for him. Look at the gain that he gets on him straight down the inside, and there's the rain already. The rain has already arrived, Jake.
It has, and more people will be thinking, why didn't I start on the medium tyres here? Because clearly, I mean, in D3 it took 4 or 5 laps for the crossover to happen, so it's not guaranteed that the medium was the best tyre choice as of yet, but the rain has come a lot earlier than I think it was FRL Charlie predicted in stream. Speaking of FRL, only 2 drivers got penalties this race. They have both of them. But Stain, I think, his pace in the race not quite living up to that qualifying pace, although it is worth noting he is on the hard tyres. But then you were saying just now, Jack, aren't you, that rightly so, that the mediums shouldn't be the quicker tyre by this point. It should be the hard, so perhaps Stain's overreached a little bit in quali and just hasn't quite got the pace in the race to match that further back. Brent's now 4.3 seconds off. T-Brum, you've got to feel sorry for him, he's in the middle of nowhere right now, 2.7 off Stain, 4.2 ahead of Brent, as Marcio is already pitted onto intermediate tyres. I think that's a little premature. But look how close it is from Brent to Tope. These aren't even, it's a train, but it's not even like a spread out train where the gaps are 6-7 tenths. Everyone's within 3 or 4 tenths of each other at most. This is super close from Brent all the way down to Rex, and then Luke and Larkin actually just behind them. So I think one mistake in this lot is going to be very costly, and it could be, well, DRS has been disabled immediately. Immediately DRS has been disabled. That's going to make a very hard decision for some of the drivers whether they'll come in this lap or next lap. And look at Stain trying to get a place on Evans, and Evans had made a big mistake. He was lucky not to take the Haas with him as they all come flooding into the pits. Now everyone's coming in for the Inters, and that could have been an absolute car crash. Evans lost the car mid-corner at Stowe, just caught onto it. Brent's going to have to queue possibly by about a second behind T-Brum. Rex got a speeding penalty. Lix has spun at Stowe. Everyone's coming on to the intermediates now. No one other than whoever it was, Ivo or someone, picked up a 5-second penalty. I don't think there is going to be too much holding. Is there? Actually, no, Ross. Ross is going to be absolutely shafted here because he had to pretty much wait the entire duration behind his teammate in the pit lane. Charlie and Ivo have stayed out, which I assume is what you were saying. Oh, at
Yeah, I'm quite surprised that they both stayed out, to be honest with you, considering they both also got penalties as well. Alex is now really sort of struggling going through turn 3 and even come through the loop. Just look at how much more confident Nolan is on the power. Of course, he's not going to have the helping of DRS. Doesn't say that though. Nolan has a massive tank slapper coming onto the DRS straight. Of course, there's not going to be any DRS because of it now raining and it being a crossover from the dry tyres to the intermediate tyres, and you can see the gain that Alex is getting on to the back of Ivo and to the back of Charlie, and in fact Ivo looking a bit quicker than Charlie despite obviously both being on the drier tyres. Yeah, Alex is just looking a lot more pacey in comparison to those top two, and you'll start to see that gap just drop immensely, especially before they come into the pits. It's already back down to 9.7 seconds. Stain somehow has made up a tiny bit of time into the pit lane to the top two, although it looks as if that has quickly dropped, and Evans is now going to try and go for an attack on Stain coming down in towards Stowe. They're both going to be using ERS, however, and unfortunately for Evans, he's not going to have the helping of DRS this time around, as there is the yellow flags, and that is Ivo out of Stowe. So yes, those dry tyres really was not the way to go for that, because those two are really going to be dropping down the order, and I get the feeling they're going to be like behind Luke and even probably behind Swede, the both of them.
Yeah, certainly Ivo with the spin. I think it's about 27 seconds is the pit loss time. I don't know exactly how far it's going to be. Oh, and Rex has gone as well now. Also, so and Larkin. Perhaps there was a collision between the two of them. Any damage, or perhaps maybe one just took avoiding action for the other. We need to see if anyone comes into the pit lane. Larkin's coming into the pit lane. Must have picked up some kind of damage. Perhaps Rex went and then Larkin collected him, would be my presumption. But yes.
Yeah, no, Lick's having a spin out of Stowe as well. Reservoir picking up a 3-second time penalty in the Ferraris. Yeah, Larkin getting that front wing repaired, chucking on another set of the intermediate tyres. What we thought he could potentially be battling for this championship. Of course, it's not really over. It's only the first race of, if I'm not mistaken, of 18. So, yeah, Larkin not having a very good start to his Season 9 campaign in Division 2. FRL Charlie picking up yet another 3-second time penalty. And to be fair to him, he's come out a lot further than what I was expecting him to be. He is behind Luke, but he's ahead of Sweet. Ivo has come out behind Reservoir and just up ahead of Marcio. However, Marcio hasn't got a penalty, whereas Ivo does, so probably going to be ended up jumping him towards the end of the race. And Nolan, I thought, was going to be hounding the back of Alex, but if anything, Alex has gotten away from him.
Yeah, Alex is gaining back ERS. He's gained about 10% on the last lap, whereas Nolan's been using it furiously, and he's losing it. So Nolan is really hanging on to the back of Alex. If Alex wanted to stretch his legs and pull away, he certainly could, because he's got so much more ERS in the kitty. Then Nolan's got a nice little nest egg there for later in the race. Stain's on 43%, Evans is on 44%. These guys have closed up to our leading two, at least a little bit since the pit stops. We've got a yellow flag. That is Coxey going very slowly down the Wellington straight. But I'll tell you what the pit stops have done, or the transition to the rain has really strewn the pack out a little bit. Those gaps that did exist that I was hyping up before aren't there anymore, and Charlie's the only real one in any kind of striking ranges. And as I say that, courtesy of the commentator, he's out of the race at turn 2. And could that be a safety car? And if it is a safety car, it is a virtual safety car. It could yet transition. Oh, it is a full safety car, because Ivo has spun as well at turn 1, so we have now got a full safety car, and this is going to bring a lot of drivers into play. Larkin, Lix, Coxey, Scream will all be very thankful for FRL Charlie there.
Tell you what, the top 5 aren't particularly going to be too happy. They were 11 seconds ahead of Brent and the rest of the grid. So, and especially Alex and Nolan, you know, they both put up a nice gap to Stain behind them with Evans as well. So, yeah, those top 5 are. I don't think they're going to be particularly too happy with the safety car coming out, but I suppose stuff like that can happen. I know they've only been 2 laps on the intermediate tyres. Surely no one's going to make a pit stop. I mean, if anything, it just means that they can extend their intermediates a lot longer. There is really no reason for any of these guys to make a pit stop unless it dries up for whatever reason. But yeah, I'll be very surprised if we see anybody make their way into the pits to chuck on maybe a fresh set of intermediate tyres. Doesn't look as if any of the top 3 have. Evans not also doing that. Neither is T-Brum. Are we going to see Brent potentially do it? But as I said, I'll be very surprised if we see anybody make their way into the pits. Full course safety car as well, like you say, Coxey I don't know. Oh no, he's going to be leading it because no, actually no, sorry, he has to wait for the safety car, or the safety car has to wait for the leader. Sorry, so. Coxey is going to be able to at least not get lapped and gap himself back to the back of Larkin. And again, it's going to be another battle. What was for 4th and 5th off the line is now for 17th and 18th for the wooden spoon.
Yeah, but I wouldn't surprise me to see Coxey and Larkin work their way through a little bit. We have got someone into pits, IRT Rex. Let's have a look if that is for any kind of damage change for the Alfa Romeo. No one else is following in, and as you say, there's no real need to. I think most people will be feeling fairly confident they can go to the end of the race on these tyres. So he's going for a fresh. It's just a fresh service. Oh, he's serving a penalty. He's serving his speeding penalty. Makes sense, but he has given up a lot of track position to do so. As Ross has spun coming out of entry and has ended up losing a place to Resify under the safety car, which is perfectly allowed because Ross made a mistake, and Marcio has done the exact same as you say there. But Rex is going to come out all the way down in 17th, which Larkin might be happy about that, depending on, I don't know, how he feels about Coxey after their little ding-dong on lap 1, but it puts a car between the two of them. So that wooden spoon battle you were hoping for, Jack, has just been delayed somewhat.
Or it could be extended. You know, Rex could also be trying to maybe fight his way through the pack as well. You never know. He has been known for that. I think even it was Division 3 2 seasons ago where he actually made up a lot in the rain, did the Americans. So, and I think took his only race win that he's had so far in League of Europe. So, yeah, Rex definitely not. I would say we can't really count him out, especially what he's done around Silverstone in the past. These back three probably don't deserve to be in the back three. So we'll see how they're going to make their way up through the field. But Alex has managed to maintain a lead of the race. He's led every single lap so far. Nolan in 2nd, Stain in 3rd, Evans in 4th, T-Brom in 5th, Brent in 6th, Tope in 7th, Chris in 8th, Luke in 9th, and Resify ran out of top 10. Sweet in 11th, and Ivo in 12th. If you're new to the League of Europe, of course, the top 12 are the ones that end up getting the points. And obviously Resify and Ivo both have penalties, so they'll probably end up dropping out of the points if they stay as close together as possible. Marcio's 13th, Screen in 14th, Flicks in 15th, Larkin 16th, Rex in 17th, and Coxey in plumb last at the moment in 18th. Trying to catch up to the back of the safety car. We may even have another lap because Coxey's only just come through Cops, whereas the safety car is making its way through turn 4 around the loop in section now as well. So there is potential that we may see another lap for the safety car. I'm quite intrigued on how Alex is going to do this restart though.
Yeah, if I was Alex, I wouldn't feel confident necessarily doing Vale and Club at speed. I think it's easy to drop it. We saw that in D3. The leader coming around the last corner ended up dropping it because they went quite early. But you just mentioned the point system, also still point fastest lap. That point fastest lap would go to nobody right now because Coxey has it down in 18th place. And with the weather conditions, I think it's fair to say that no one is going to be taking that fast lap away from Coxey. So it may be we don't see a fast lap point today unless some miracle happens in the remainder of the race. Coxey is 57 seconds off the lead. I think that 56. He is going to catch up probably just at the start of the next lap. So I think you're right. We'll see the safety car in at the end of lap 15, which will give us 11 laps of racing action to the flag. No DRS, of course. It's just all about who's got the most bottle and who's not going to bottle. Because it's confusing, isn't it, Jack? How bottle can mean if you've got a lot of bottle, you don't bottle, but if you bottle, it means you rubbish. It's very confusing terminology.
Cheeky little double entendre, I suppose we should say. It could be good to bottle, it could be bad to bottle. You never know. But what I'm quite intrigued on is Rex has bottled. He picked up the 3-second time penalty under the safety car, which is quite intrigued me. I don't know how he's managed to do that. Probably catching up to the safety car, but yeah, he's managed to pick that up under the safety car, which is a bit strange. So yeah, Rex now even more of a disadvantage with Coxey behind him when he catches up. And of course, as you say, the safety car should be in at the end of lap 15 once Coxey has caught up, and he's only coming through Stone now. So yeah, it should be definitely the safety car coming in at the end of lap number 15 for sure. Alex Tate obviously in the lead at this present moment. Nolan's in 2nd, staying in 3rd. As I said, Alex is looking very confident, especially more so in the wet in comparison to the dry. Of course, there's not going to be any DRS for Nolan to try and go for a move, and all of these guys will now have a full battery pack to work with, rather than sort of just depleting their energy as much as possible. They will definitely be doing that on the restart. It's just who's going to have the better of the restart. Is Nolan going to be able to read when Alex goes? Is Alex going to be able to get a massive gap, and could Stain jump Nolan? Could Nolan jump ahead of Alex? Could Evans even jump Stain and even jump Nolan? There's a lot of factors that's going to be playing into it once we get the safety car restart. As I said, it just depends on how Alex takes his restart. Knowing the fact that he's an NLR, he might be getting coached by a few of the NLR boys to tell him when to go for it and how to try and do the safety car restart. So we'll see if the Red Bull's able to do it, as Chris has gotten past Luke under the safety car for some reason.
He has, and Luke has nearly hit the wall, did hit the wall at Woodcut there, warming his tyres. I don't know, I think he picked up visible damage, but I'm very confused. Luke lost a position and then nearly threw it into the wall for good measure. Safety car will be in at the end of this lap. Yeah, I think we know from League of history that safety cars from mid-race onwards tend to invite a little more opportunism, shall we put it nicely, after them. They end up turning into sprint races where all hell breaks loose. Add into that the fact that with these conditions, drivers probably won't be feeling very confident. They'll be a little bit nervy, a little bit twitchy. Drivers will be rusty on the game. A lot of these won't have really driven before today. I know Nolan's barely picked up the game in a month. So I think when you add in the late safety car spice, plus the conditions, plus the rustiness, we could see a few errors. And Alex has caught Nolan completely napping there. He saw the AlphaTauri weaving away and thought, you know what, I'm going. And he has gone, and he's broken Nolan by nearly a second there, coming through the last couple of corners, and he's got the jump completely on the AlphaTauri, who's done the same for the Haas. But the Haas, the same can't be said for Evans. Joshua's going to go up the inside of turn one, has to back out of that one. They both go a little bit deep coming through two, and Stain catches a small slide there on the way into farm, and they've got to be so careful that they don't throw away everything for the sake of one position, like Lix just has done. And T-Brum sliding away on the traction through Aintree, and Brent's lost time as well. He's 1.2 seconds back. Tell you what, who is on a charge? Luke is really close to the back of Chris, coming up the inside. Is he going to regain that place he lost under the SC into Brooklands? Yes, he is, I think. And Chris has still got the inside line, but he has to give up on that one. Luke had enough overspeed to make that stick. Tope having a wobble through the exit of Luffield, and then Luke doing the same in sympathy. Evans is now very close to the stage once again and eyeing up that podium place. He started down in P9, P10, whatever it was, had a poor qualifying, but he's on the charge now. I think Evans is certainly one to watch over the season, over these early races. I think he's my dark horse for the title, is Evans. He looks hungry.
Yeah, he certainly does look hungry. I'll tell you what as well, Larkin and Rex both making their way up through the field as well. They started in 16th and 17th on their safety car restart. They've already made up 3 positions each. Coxey's obviously made up that position from Nix having that spin out of turn at number 2, I think it was, for the Dutchman having that spin, as I say, out from that safety car restart. But yeah, Alex has completely pulled away from Nolan, and Nolan, he's had a good restart. It's just Alex had a much better restart and staying all over the place now, coming through the final sector and even through the final corner. Evans as well having a bit of an oversteer moment as T-Brum now maybe just going to try and up and move on to Aston Martin down in towards turn 1.
Luke and Chris
is a Canadian.
Sorry, Luke and Tope just getting through to turn 1. Ivo spun at the last corner, but that was very brave from Luke to get past Tope into turn 1, and T-Brum, yes, up attacking Joshua for P4. Joshua was having a go at Stein on the last lap. This time Brum's having a go at Evans, but Evans just hangs on. Look at them, they're dancing and wiggling away out of every traction zone. They can't keep the cars in a straight line.
Yeah, T-Brum, the Canadian, really trying to get a move done on Evans as much as possible, but I don't think he's going to be able to. Evans having a little bit of an oversteer moment coming out of Brooklands, now going through Luffield to both of them. Who's going to get a better exit out of that one? T-Brum already short shifted up into 5th. to try and get the better traction, but it looks as if Evans had the better traction coming out of that corner. Both the Mercedes running quite well in 5th and 6th, to be fair to them. And yeah, I think there was another spinner that happened last lap as well. I think it was FRL Ivo who had a spin. It doesn't look as if he's got any damage from what I can see, but I think must have had a spin on traction, as that Scream now has definitely got wing damage. He's got no wing whatsoever. As he made his way on towards the straight, coming up towards Kopp's corner. So unfortunately for the German, now going to be very far at the back of the grid with no front wing whatsoever. T-Brum dropping off a little bit from Evans, and Brent maybe now going to try and eye up a move on his teammate for P5. Luke's just still managing to pull the gap away from Tope as well. Within this lap as well, 1.5 seconds almost ahead of Tope just in this lap alone, and 1.2 seconds now behind Brent. I said Luke's one to watch out for in the rain, and he is definitely proving me right at the moment. He is already gaining up to the back of the 2 Mercedes, and Evans is also gained back up to the back of Stain. Stain is really not enjoying these wet conditions, and I think we might see a move very soon, a potential move for a podium go down within the next couple of laps. As I say, that T-Bron makes a massive mistake going through turn number 3.
Yeah, again, very deep is the only word that can be said for it. It went almost completely off track there, the exit of turn 3. As I tell you, has made a little mistake. Brent, I think, had a very shoddy exit through entry, just got a little bit of wheel spin and ended up losing some time now, a second behind, and perhaps falling a little bit towards the clutches of Luco 5 HD. Funnily enough, in this race, just look at the position change. 7th, 8th and 9th are exactly where they started for all that's happened in this race. But the 3 ahead of them, and Brent completely cutting woodcut there, going across the grass as Larkin dispatches Resify. For another place, he passed Ross into Cox on the last lap. He's passed Resify this lap. Don't count Larkin out for a really good result here. He is a man on an absolute mission as Coxey spins coming out of Luffield. But he's gaining places, and we've not even noticed, Jack, we've been so absorbed by the action, but we're into heavy rain conditions now, with 8 laps to go after this one, as Luke now passes Brent. Luke and Larkin are the 2 in this race who are on a proper charge, as the rain's getting heavier and heavier, and Alex the G now has a 3.5 second lead.
It is very heavy wet conditions, and we might even see, it might even be wet tyre conditions very soon as well. Is anybody going to try and take the gamble for that? Stain, massive bit of oversteer through the penultimate corner. Evans having a tiny little wobble, shall I say, as well. But yeah, all basically managing to maintain it on the road. I think it is wet conditions from the looks of things, because Evans not very fast through turn 1 or turn 2. Same can be said for T-Brom, and T-Brom really trying to put the pressure on Evans as well, and Evans trying to put the pressure on Stain. Stain is the one that is really causing a cork in a bottle for these 3 drivers. Luke also trying to see if he can go for a move, as I didn't even realise Brent must have made some massive mistake, because Luke is now up into 6th position, Brent now down into 7th, as Evans trying to go for the move on T-Brom. Sorry, T-Brom going around the outside of Evans through Brooklands as well. Evans will have the inside, T-Brom will have the outside, but have the inside for Luffield. A little bit of wall banging between the pair of them, and T-Brom gets the move done, although a little bit of a wobble from T-Brom as well. Both really struggling. It is definitely wet conditions, Jake. Is anybody going to come in for a set of wet tyres? Foxy and then Scream have.
I don't think it's worth it. You've got to find 27 seconds between now and the end of the race to make that pit stop worth your while. It's just a case of dealing with it. I'm shocked at how quick Larkin's looked in the wet. He's hounding the back of Chris now. He's passing cars at a rate of 1 a lap. Had a look this lap. He's so close to the back of that Alpine. If he passes the Alpine, he's straight onto the back of Tope and straight onto the back of Brent. He looks much quicker than these guys. Look at the exit he's getting. He's not having those wobbles other drivers are having. He's got the ERS on. He's got a tremendous run down the hang straight now. The only trouble is that Chris has got some slipstream as well. And he's Larkin's going to have a lunge here into Stowe, and Chris has no option really but to leave him the room, and then nearly, he does well to catch a slide on the exit, only misses the one place. He's got to be careful because Reservoir is so close behind him. Larkin is on an absolute charge in this race. He's gained 4 places since the safety car went in, or possibly more than that. You said he was down in 16th or 17th, didn't you? So yeah, he's gained about 8 places in fact. And he's straight onto the back of Tope now, and Brent's not much further up the road either, and he's still got 7 laps to work with in this race. I wouldn't count Larkin out for a 4th or 5th here. He's where all the entertainment is at in this race, the Constructors' Champion from last season. He's hounding Tope. He's not having those wobbles all the other drivers are having. As T-Brum passes Stain, and Stain is swung on the back of entry, and there's a free place for everyone.
Larkin!
Oh no!
He's done the exact same thing as you were saying as well. He has done the same thing as Stain.
Oh dear, it was going so well, and now he's going to have to do all of those moves all over again. And T-Brum, our D3 champion for... No, sorry, was he our D3 champion from D4 champion from last season, is now into P3, on for a D2 debut podium, and Evans and Luke's up into 5th here, he's gained 2 places, Evans gained 6, T-Brum's gone up 9, Brent's gone up 9, it's a day for the big gainers.
Yeah, no, it certainly has been, and there's still Rex and Stain were side by side for a cop. Stain sort of felt like he was pushed out wide, and I was just watching it from Larkin's POV as well. Stain really trying to make an impact as Rex has a massive tank slapper coming out of Chapel now. Stain's going to try and go for a move on the American down in towards Stowe. He's going to look to go down the inside, not going to be able to go for a move. Larkin maybe trying to see if he can half a move. A tiny little bit of contact between Rex and Stain. Larkin's then had to try and back out of that one. Rex having a massive tank slapper out of Stowe. They're all making so many mistakes coming through the final sector. Larkin almost going into the back of Stain as well. I mean, Larkin is fuming that he made that mistake because now he started making a few mistakes because of these guys in front making mistakes. Stain going very wide, coming out of the final corner as well, and that is another spinner. That is Ivo once again towards the back of the field, having yet another spin. So many gaps have formed as well, but this battle here for the towards the back for the final points are where it is all at. Rex is doing a very good job now. He's managed to get that gap ahead of Stain, and Larkin needs to try and go for some sort of move where he possibly can on Stain because he's just costing so much time. Stain, a massive tank tapper, same places where he made that mistake, and same with Larkin on that last lap. So yeah, at the moment Stain really causing a bit of, or making a bit of a cork of the bottle for Larkin. Reservoir now all over the back of Chris as well, going through Luffield. Who's going to get a better exit out of the two? The Alpine massive has a little bit of a wobble coming through there, but manages I think to get a better exit of the two. But Reservoir, of course, with that penalty is put out a bit of a hindrance in comparison to the guys out in front. And same with Rex. Unfortunately for Rex, he's driving pretty well since that safety car restart as well. But yeah, unfortunately that penalty is really going to harm him.
I wouldn't even call what these drivers are doing mistakes at this point. They're just having to wrestle with the cars. They're on completely the wrong tyres. Ivo is... Oh, actually, let's... Oh, Scream's retired on track. Could that be a safety car? That is a safety car. Are they going to flood into the pit lane? It's not a safety car. Had that been a safety car just as Alex and Felipe had passed pit entry, that could have been absolutely wild as Reservoir almost lives up to that word, nearly flying, drifting, Scandinavian style through Stowe corner there. It's not going to be a safety car, but if it had been, the top two I think would have been shafted with the tyres potentially. But it is as you were. It's T-Brum in 3rd, Evans in 4th, Luke in 5th, Brent in 6th. The top 6 look pretty set in, and then it's a battle, well, who knows what, behind with Tope, Chris, Reservoir, Rex, Stain, Larkin, Ross. A mistake for any of these, and it's going to be, we could see a big change in the order. Larkin is still furiously handing the back of that house, probably kicking himself, as you say, for that mistake, and I wonder if Stain's probably feeling the same way. He could have had a podium out of this race. It's not going to be the case. It's going to be 2 points at best, it's looking like right now, although they have got those penalties up ahead to benefit from potentially, as Rex, one of those drivers, is having a look at the other one, a Reservoir through Luffield, but nothing going this lap. And that's the trouble, Jack, with the wet conditions. No DRS. It's so hard to make overtakes.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. And Reservoir made a bit of a mistake coming out of Aintree as well. He went very wide. I thought Rex was going to go for a move on the Ferrari out in front, but didn't manage to. Ivo speeding into the pit lane, and that is our 3rd retirement of Division 2 for this evening. Yeah, it was that Scream who actually came into the pits and retired from the session, and then Ivo sort of spun at the same time. So it wouldn't have surprised me if we did see a safety car because of that, but luckily we actually didn't, and we're now managing to carry on with the action. I'll tell you what's a bit interesting as well though, Jay. T-Brum has caught up to the back of Nolan, so Nolan really is struggling. Well, everybody else is struggling, but he's struggling a bit more in comparison to, within the top 3, because T-Brum is now within a second of Nolan. T-Brum, on his Division 2 debut, being a Division 4 champion, could finish in second at the end of this race. Very close though, still from 7th, Tope, Chris, Reservoir and Rex, all still very close. And as I said, that Reservoir, again, a massive wobble coming out of the final corner has made it so that he has gotten another penalty as Coxey has gone around yet again.
And T-Brum, just as you hyped him up, curse the commentator strikes again. Dipped a wheel in the grass on the exit of turn 4. Dipped a couple of wheels in the grass, actually. Is now 1.5 seconds off Nolan, but kept the car under control. I wonder if drivers who are running a rear wing offset where they've got higher rear wing than the front wing will be absolutely loving life here as Larkin passes Stain. In fact, that's because Stain has dropped it on the exit of 8 tree for the second time this race, and Reservoir goes completely off the track. Nearly got swiped out by Rex, coming through Brooklands, and Rex is now going to try and gain second place on Chris on the traction as T-Brum picked up a very costly, potentially, penalty in P3. He's got no hopes of gapping Nolan, passing Nolan, gapping Nolan now, but Rex takes 8th place in this race. Stain now has a penalty. They're starting to flood in a little bit here as Chris concedes P8, but he's going to gain that back on penalties if he can stay within 3 seconds in the remaining 3.5 laps of this race. Coxey is spun at the last corner for the 3rd time today, and this is just bringing Reservoir and Larkin back into play a little bit behind them. This battle in for P8, and it's given Taupe just a smidge of breathing space. But look at T-Brum, he's already back to within half a second of Nolan. If he hadn't made that mistake and then picked up a penalty, as you say, he could have had P2 in this race, but that's looking very difficult now with the 3 seconds. Larkin passes Reservoir on the exit of Stowe.
Yeah, it certainly is, and the penalties are definitely flooding in, as is the track at this moment. It is looking like, yeah, everybody really is struggling as Reservoir, again, a wobble out of the final corner, trying to just catch whatever traction he possibly can, has now made it so that he is dropping behind it as Stain into the pits has retired from the session, the 4th one to retire on his debut. It was a very good qualifying from him into P2, but unfortunately that rain really has not worked out for him, and now out of the session. I said our 4th retirement as well. Cox is still doing quite well, just sort of I'm surprised he hasn't retired as of yet. I know he's not one to be known for retiring from the session, but almost getting lapped by his reserve teammate, who is still leading the race at the moment. T-Brum still trying to hound the back on Nolan for this P2. Of course, 3 laps left to go already, Jake, of this first race of Season 9 for the League of Europe. And what a way to start off the season is from a dry to wet race. And Rex, he has been making up places left, right and centre, as I was saying with him and Larkin. Unfortunately, Larkin obviously made that mistake, but Rex has been making up quite a few positions, and he's now got another IRT man to try and make a position up on within these last 3 laps. And we could potentially see Rex. He could even try and get a gap out to Taupe, because he's just looking so much quicker in the wet. As a bit of a tank slapper though, just making his way in towards Chapel because of the conditions. But the rain is starting to ease up from the looks of things. It doesn't look as if it was raining as hard as what it was about 5 laps ago.
It still looks heavy, but it definitely looks brighter. I would say if it is still heavy rain, it's certainly at the end of it. But it may well be we are right on the changeover point back to light rain, in which case it will come back towards drivers should see less of those errors. And we've got some love with 2 laps to go for Alex in the chat from NLR colleagues Phelan and Jav and Tattle as well. Stain says, I hate the rain. Ivo said, I'm so good in this league, all the races I finished I won, and that's appropriately perhaps why he came into the pits and retired to keep up that record. As that was Chris having a little moment towards turn 4, and Larkin's going to nip straight in there, says thank you very much sir, and takes P9 and recovers for the 2nd time today some of the places that he's lost. It will be onto the back of Rex. If Larkin can recover an 8th place from this race, that is remarkable considering his various misadventures that he's been having. Up front, it is all very much spread out now. I think T-Brum's given up hope of passing and gapping Nolan. The gap's at a 2nd, and then it's fairly spread out all the way down, isn't it? All the way back to the Taupe train, which is where our attention has been for the last few laps. It's Taupe in P7 with a penalty-stricken Rex in 8th, and then Larkin 9th, Chris 10th, Reservoir 11th, but with 2 penalties to his name. So he's going to fall possibly behind. He's going to fall behind Ross at this rate, even though Ross has a penalty himself. Marcio in no man's land down in 13th, and then Lix quietly suffering down in 14th, and God knows what's happened to Coxey in 15th. But I've got to say, everyone in this race, the top 6, they deserve their finishing positions. They've all looked very comfortable. They've all dealt with what the rain has thrown at them, and they've not made too many mistakes. Alex and Nolan haven't really put a foot wrong in this one, nor's T-Brum, and I don't think have Evans or Luke made a mistake in this race, or Brent? I don't think they've made certainly not a major one, have they?
I wouldn't say they really sort of made a major mistake or anything like that. Yeah, as you say, I think they all pretty much deserve the positions that they're in at the moment. Obviously, we're on the final lap of the race, and Alex, what a debut this is for Division 2. He has just driven away from the rest, especially getting pressured by Nolan early on in the dry conditions. In the wet, what a performance this has been from the reserve driver in the Red Bull. He's leading in by 8.5 seconds, and I think we're still going to be. I think that gap's just going to get even bigger because T-Brum is now putting pressure under Nolan for that second position. Of course, T-Brum with that penalty is the only mistake he's really sort of made this evening. Other than that, though, he has driven very well to get to where he is. I think he started at a pretty low-ish position. Yeah, down in 12th position he started in. He's now up into 3rd. He won't get jumped by Evans because he's about 4.5 seconds, nearly 5 seconds up ahead of him, but yeah, what a race this has been for both Mercedes as well. Both made up 9 positions in this race, and I think it's going to stay that way unless, of course, Luke picks up a penalty or something like that. But a few more corners left to go, Jake. We said it would be Alex at the start. I think we're both right on that one.
I think we certainly are. He's in Max Verstappen's car, and it's been a Max Verstappen performance from Alex to the G. Indomitable in his League of Europe debut in Division 2. He leads the championship with a full haul of 25 points. It's going to be Ariel Felipe who comes home second in the Sister AlphaTauri. He dispatched T-Brum's pressure admirably. He takes second. T-Brum is third in his D2 debut, the Division 4 champion. Evans takes 4th, Luke takes 5th. Solid starts to their championship campaigns, likely contenders later on. Brent 6th, then Taupe, Larkin is 8th, Chris is 9th, Rex is 10th, Ross 11th. Reservoir slips to 12th with his 3 penalties in this race. Marcio 13th, Lix 14th. Coxey retires in the pits on the last lap of the race, and it's going to be Lix who completes the order here. 14 finishes in this race, but no one could come close to Alex the G.
Yeah, and what a performance that was. As I said, on his debut for Division 2, very well done to Alex for that win. What a drive that was from him. As I said, very well done from holding on to that pressure from Nolan early on, and and from staying. Obviously, those top 3 were all very close to each other. But it just shows he was the dominant one in both of those conditions, in the dry and in the wet. And it showed, especially in that wet conditions, into his first win of Division 2 and the first win of Season 9 in Division 2 as well. As I said, commiserations to Nolan and to T-Brum. That's a T-Brum, very good race. I wonder what could have been if he had started higher up in the grid as well for the Canadian. And as from Division 4 to Division 2, he's making a very good impression early on though, Jake.
He certainly is, and it makes you wonder how many people can go forth and win races in this. If Alex the G stays as a reserve, it may well be he's bumped up to a Division 1 reserve on the basis of today, and if next week shows a similar story. But I think there'll be plenty of people who will be encouraged from that. And Nolan, I don't think he'll be feeling commiserations. I think he'll be absolutely ecstatic with that P2, as will T-Brum with the P3. They've both made very, very solid starts. The fact that Nolan qualified well, raced well, and finished well, and dealt with T-Brum's pressure in the wet as well, I think he'll be absolutely delighted with that. Evans is 4th. I said Luke was 5th. Brent went from 15th to 6th. A quiet rise for him and a quiet race, but a fabulous one as well. Taupe in 7th. Larkin in 8th after his misadventures. Chris in 9th. Rex 10th, drove solidly in the wet, but could have been better, but a penalty for him. Put a dampener on that. Ross in 11th. Reservoir in 12th. Marcio then Lix, Coxey, and then Stain, Ivo, Scream, and Charlie all failed to finish. Stain, who started on the front row, what might have been for him, although we did say earlier on that even in the dry, his race pace didn't quite seem to match his qualifying promise. But I'd say if that's anything to go by, qualifying and the race, I think we are in for an absolute treat all season long. And I am shamelessly going to have to skip out on interviews, but then I did the same at Abu Dhabi last season after I won the title, so there's nothing. I've got form there. But is there anything you'd like to say, Jack, before we round out the stream?
This is going to be an interesting season, especially if the reserves are going to be doing what they did tonight. I think this season is definitely going to be one we need to keep our eye out for. Nolan is leading the Drivers' Championship in full-time drivers, so yeah. If that's not anything to try and keep you watching in Division 2, then I don't know what will be. But yeah, thanks to everybody that has tuned in. Look forward to it for China next week.
And next week, of course, is a sprint race, so keep your eye out for that one. One-shot qualifying, and then a sprint, and then a full standard race. Thank you to J. Cole for joining me. He'll be streaming next week. We're gonna yo-yo from who's lead column and who's not, because it's fun to spice it up. Well, he's been J. Cole. I've been QVR Killer. Thank you for tuning in. Next week, 6:30, Division 1 with James Head and Old School 3000. You might actually see me racing that one for a change. Division 3 with Jess Gamer and Evil Dragon 99 returning. And then Division 2, we'll be back here, same time, same place. Division 4, you can catch with QVR Verstappen and QVR Packer. Until then, have a fabulous week. Thank you for tuning in, and